Hey everybody, it's Bust with Battles with Bust number 67, and today we're going to be playing some scouts. I know all y'all out there just been like, "Shit, Bust, when you going to give me some more scouts? When you gonna hit me with it real good?" It's been at least 2 weeks since you've brought us some scouts, and it really hurts me in my soul. And so you're going to get it today. You know, we're bringing it in hard, bringing the scouts right back at you. But before we dive in, there was more spoilers yesterday, and I wanted to come in and jump and talk about those. They weren't the champion-based ones; they were actually all of these Tellstones. And so this image here, some dude on Reddit, it looks like it was no op underscore noob. Thanks a lot, bro. Put together this big overall. All of the clue stones kind of picture that has all of the cards together with the clue stones itself. We'll jump into these individually as we talk about them because I think it's a little bit too much to take in video form. My picture up here in the top right covers up some of this stuff, and so we'll get on them individually. But I wanted to just kind of talk about them in general first. And so these were spoiled. I of course immediately ran to Twitter and started memeing and talking about how great the Targonian one was. Right, everybody wants to come to this set of cards to the very right of the screen and pick up a paddle star and pick up a wish, and that's just being kind of memey. That is actually a realistically not strong card, but playable. All of these cards are playable. We've seen this in Legends of Runeterra with the likes of Three Sisters. I'm curious if they'll switch Three Sisters to be the Freylord Tellstones or something. I don't know. Or if we look at a game like Magic and the charm cycles that they've made throughout the years, all of those tend to be extremely playable as well. Now, what we tend to see with these charms and what we see with Three Sisters is there's typically like one mode that you really want, and then the other ones are just kind of like extra incentive to play the card, right? It is certainly a real cost to have to spend the 1 mana on these cards, but the versatility you get out of these is what is supposed to make up for that extra cost that you're having to pay. And so, yeah, like historically in Magic, you would see a card where it would be like, deal 3 damage to a creature and then do some other shit, right? It might say like make your opponent discard their most expensive card, destroy an artifact, whatever. You're playing it because it's the removal spell, or you're playing it because it's destroy the artifact, and then the other stuff is just bonus, right? For the kind of fringe situations where it's useful, right? So you have these cards that'll, the one that kind of comes to mind to me that feels really weird and strange is something like Primordial Command. I think that's the name of the green one that has stuff on it like gain 7 life, which you just never want. It has things like return a non-creature to your opponent's hand or the top of their deck or something, which you rarely want. It has a mode that like searches your deck for a creature. I don't remember the exact modes, but it's just a bunch of garbage that you never realistically want on a single card. But when it comes together and getting to piece together 2 of those abilities at the same time, whether or not as being ultra defensive or getting the utility of removing a non-creature card, whatever, it becomes extremely strong and extremely powerful. No one needs to be reminded of how good Cryptic Command was. This was something that dominated various constructed formats over the years. That is the counter spell, the bounce, the draw card, and there's something else attached to it, but extremely, extremely powerful. And that's what I expect that we're going to see out of most of these in Runeterra, right? I was being fairly memey. The Paddle Star is pretty weak. The Wish is pretty weak, but all combined together, if you're saying, okay, well, I'm playing Taric, and I want to have access to Blessing of Targon, but being Targon, we have pretty shitty interactivity. Perhaps I want to just play the Tellstones in place of playing the Blessing of Targon itself. Same thing kind of applies where if there's a situation to where you want to play 6 copies of Blessing of Targon, I don't think that'll ever be the case, but the kind of options and the opportunities are there. And so while we do see a card like Paddle Star, which we would realistically never want to play, we might find ourselves in some kind of spot, even if we're just imagining, say, we're playing Yumi Pantheon, right? And we're in these spots to where we have a really big unit on the board, and we just need to protect its health a little bit, then sure, right? You might find a space to where you get to heal your Pantheon or your big unit out of a realistically deadly spot. And so I'm not like trying to hype it up as the Targonian Tellstones are the bee's knees and the next big thing to hit constructed, but you do have to accept that all of these cards are playable. Now, the next thing to remember on these before I kind of jump into them individually real quick is every single Tellstones has a removal spell. So if we're going left or right, you can see Keeper's Verdict, you can see Chum the Waters, Detain, Homecoming, Whirling Death. You can go across the board, but every single one of these has a removal spell. Every single one of these has a combat trick, and so that's one of the things that you're going to have to keep in mind once these cards are out and once we're running around in constructed. Right, as we play against Freylord these days, we have to find ourselves in a lot of situations to where it's like, they might have a Fury of the North here, right? We know that they're just never playing Fury of the North. They shouldn't have it unless it's the Sejuani flip. But given the versatility and the power of the Freylordian Tellstones, if you will, you have to just be ready for the Fury of the North and know what it means when your opponent has that 5 mana up. And so we're going to be in that space now. Whenever you're playing against Bandle City, you might have to be like, okay, well, this is a spot where I could most definitely get 2-for-1, right? It's a very powerful place with your opponent being able to have heroic refrains attached to removal spells, attached to draw twos. And so you're just going to have to kind of keep that in mind as your game progresses, that your opponent has the potential to just almost always have a removal spell or a combat trick. So interesting stuff. Like onto these cards individually, some of these are extremely good. Some of these are fairly mediocre. I think Piltover Tellstones is one of these things that's probably closer to pretty good. Aftershock is constructed playable. We see a lot of things in Piltover where you get bonuses for playing these extra cards, whether or not that is Augment or something like Heimerdinger that wants to see you play spells. There are incidental strategies that you can pull off with these things. There's even stuff like the stress testing that removes fleeting off of a card. That's not a great combo here, but it's something, right? There are incidental strategies that work with these things, and drawing up big into Progress Day is huge. Progress Day is one of the most powerful spells in the game, and so having a versatile removal spell attached to Progress Day, pretty big. On to the next one. The Shadow Isles Tellstone is extremely powerful as well. Crumble is one of these cards that just isn't good enough for constructed play, right? If you're comparing Crumble to Vengeance, then you're just going to take the Vengeance every time. But when it comes to attaching Crumble to a versatile protect my Vigio kind of spell like Spirit Journey, if it comes to having a combat trick attached to it in Mark of the Isles, and then getting some kind of side combos with these as like working with Slayers, working with Kindred, pretty powerful spell all around, especially in these decks that just have a bunch of shitty units in it, right? If we're, say, playing Vigio, or if we're playing Kindred Ionia, having access to the Spirit Isles, having access to Slayers-based cards, and then Mark of the Isles on a potential Ephemeral. All in all, pretty powerful stuff. One of the better ones, I do think. On to Bilgewater. This is kind of an awkward one, right? It's like really strange to me, given the power of rallies, right? So many decks are just so big on rallies, and then Playful Trickster just seeing almost no play. And so this one is kind of interesting in those terms, is adding the versatility to Playful Trickster while also having more powder and Chum the Waters enough to make it playable. Probably not. I feel like this is still just kind of like the worst one in the game. This is probably worse than the Targon one. And it's just stacking it onto Bilgewater. Someone at Riot just doesn't like Bilgewater, and so they make everything in their faction just super shitty. But if there is a world where you want to be playing more powders, this is the kind of thing that you're looking for, right? Whenever we're playing powder keg based strategies, we never want to play a card like More Powder. We're always looking to play that 2/2 for 2 that makes a keg. We're looking to play that 3/1 for 3 that makes a keg, and then the likes of Gangplank. You're never really looking to play the physical card More Powder. You're not really looking to play Boom Ship. But this is the kind of place to where you can get useful More Powders. And so I still don't think this one's very good, but there's no denying the power of rallies in this game. And if you're looking to have something like More Powder or have some overwhelm capabilities like Chum the Waters, then you have a potential card there. The Bandle Tellstones, extremely, extremely powerful. The problem that you tend to see with Bandle City is the removal is shitty. They just don't have good ones outside of Minimorph. Bandle City's not really supposed to be able to just kill stuff, and this does give you a nice a suite of cards between a good combat trick and the heroic refrain, a removal spell, in the Keeper's Verdict, and then Yordle Contraption, while not being a super exciting play, the option to just have a draw two is pretty powerful as well. And so especially when you're draw two with these multi-faction kind of cards can be like, oops, I just put 12 mana in my hand, right? There's no denying that like you can run into some real late game situations to where you're just like, I want something, I want anything. And then a Yordle Contraption putting like a 7-cost dude and a 5-cost dude in your hand is a realistic capability. And so lots of good versatility coming out of the Bandle City ones, one of the more powerful ones in my opinion. The Ionian one is quite interesting to me. One of the things I meant to talk about but didn't is that the Tellstones don't really work in aggressive decks, right? If we're playing an ultra aggressive deck, like the way we always talk about Pirates, is you want to spend your first 6 mana of every game on units. And so if you're having to spend mana on versatility, it's probably not good enough. But that's not to say that a lot of the kind of base Ionia decks don't just like love having all of these abilities. Whether or not that is winning a race with your Green Glade Duo deck that tends to land aggressively, but having the health potion option to protect a champion, protect you in a race, have the homecoming, which you can kind of drop down on. A time then you don't really mind that the mana costs that much. You're usually getting a pretty big tempo play out of a homecoming, and then that's the only card you play that turn anyways, or the big combat trick out of Stand United. I think this does a lot of the stuff that Ionia really wants, and it comes at a pretty reasonable price, especially as there's a handful of cards that care about you playing the spells, a handful of cards that care about the barriers. I think that whenever we see a card like Homecoming that's played pretty much across the board in just about every Ionia deck, that you'll probably get some pretty good usage out of the Tellstones, even if the Health Potion and the Stand United aren't the most exciting of cards. Into the next one, Demacia. This is what I think is probably the best one right from the get-go. Prismatic Barrier, Detain, and for Demacia are all incredibly powerful spells. This is what I think you're really amped up about getting out of the Tellstones is, hey, I have a good combat trick, I have a removal spell, or I just have a big game ender. And the versatility out of the 1-mana spell is completely worth it across the board. This does have some interesting champion-based pairings, whether or not that is using the Prismatic Barriers with Fiora. It's kind of always interesting with something like Lux, to where Lux always ran into problems with Detain and Concerted Strike actually only costing 5 mana and needing 6 for the final spark to hit. Excuse me, and so you can kind of like pop off some things in those terms, and I think that this is just the number one, just the best cards out of all of them. Like all of these are arguably cards you'd be willing to play in a constructed deck, and then the versatility is just so high, and this plays so well into a lot of Demacia's themes. Very, very powerful stuff out of the Demacian one. Whoever it is at Riot that just doesn't like Bilgewater, I'm almost assuredly sure likes Demacia. Okay, but then the Targonian ones, again, like this feels like it's one of the worst ones. It's probably better than, in a vacuum, it's probably better than the Bilgewater one, but it's all about finding the deck that wants to make this work. And there are some of these themes that we've talked about in Targon. So if you're wanting to say play Zoe and then use her flip ability, having things like the Targonian Tellstones really helps. But I think this will mainly be a deck that's looking to have the Blessing of Targon, or even if it's like say a Soraka deck would get a lot of usage out of something like this. But I think this is the one that really kind of drives home that no, we don't want to play a card in our deck like Paddlestar. Paddlestar is just a pure garbage card. But with Demacia's or with Targon's removal being so bad, and then also the kind of versatility that comes out of it, you're just willing to run with it. And so I think that this will probably see some usage out of some Zoe decks, and then otherwise probably looking a bit towards Taric. All right, then the Noxan ones. These are kind of interesting to me. These are, again, another high-quality set of cards. I think this is one of the better sets of Tellstones with the Sharpened Resolve as the combat trick. Whirling Death is just a premier spell, and then Weapons of the Lost is the versatility kind of card. But the thing that I was mentioning earlier the Ionia section to where this just doesn't work in aggro decks, I think really applies here, right? If you're playing a really burn heavy Demacia, or I'm sorry, Decimate based Noxus deck, this isn't the home for it, right? It's not to say that the Nox and Tellstones are a bad card. That's just not the right home for it. But the thing that really interests me with these are what we find in a lot of terms with our base Noxus decks is you want to be making a big open attack. And within that open attack, you know, having the versatility to either have a removal spell or a combat trick is quite huge. And then you do also find these turns as well to where you make that big open attack, and then you have some spell mana banked, and you're able to just drop Weapons of the Lost. Weapons of the Lost is kind of tough here since it would cost like 1,000,000 mana. I forget what it costs, if it costs 6 or 8. Either way, it's very expensive to come in and pull that off. But I think you can still find some pretty good open attacks to where you want this. And this is, I don't think it'll be a staple of Noxus, but you should be able to find a nice mid-rangey style Noxus deck that would be pretty happy to have this. And so that is that. What's this last one? Oh, the Shuriman ones. It said like brand build up at the top, and I was like, the fuck did I open? We aren't talking about brand here. No, the Shuriman one. It's fine. You know, it all fits into the same categories of things that we've been talking about. You may find a specific deck that wants some of these cards, right? So if we're playing a Renekton deck, we would be pretty happy to have the versatility that comes out of the Ruthless Predator. You don't see too many decks actively looking for Weight of Judgment or Spirit Fire, but it's something that you could definitely look for. The Shurima removal is terrible, and so one of the problems you would run into with a card like Weight of Judgment is it just doesn't answer champions well, and so you aren't like super inclined, or you're kind of like meta dependent in the world to where you want to add Weight of Judgment to your deck. It has seen play, right? It did catch some play whenever the tokens deck was real big, but it's not a card that we've seen a lot of recently, and not a card that a lot of decks are super excited to play. But as the thing we've been preaching, the versatility is here. Getting a combat trick out of Ruthless Predator is big. Getting a vulnerable out of Ruthless Predator is big. And then the Weight of Judgment plus Spirit Fire versatility, pretty big thing here, and good. I think this is one of the kind of mid-rangey ones, but still pretty strong. And so that is it. That is all of the Tellstones. We can switch back to the deck list real quick. We are bringing you that scout video you've been yearning for. It has been a couple of weeks since we played these. It's kind of odd to me. Like, I'm always a huge fan of scouts. I'm always like advertising that you should probably be playing this. But when the 3.6 patch came out, we were just seeing like so much Udyr and so many like Garen decks. There was just like a really poor time on the ladder to be running scouts. But then as like seasonals approached, it did look to be a deck that would be pretty optimal based on how you were running your lineups. The thing with scouts is it has a abysmal matchup against Yuumi Pantheon, and the thing in best of 3 is you see tons of Yuumi Pantheon. It's a deck that it doesn't overlap with much. It's really powerful. Has a great matchup table against the majority of the format. And so it was very, very common in a lot of the successful best of 3 lineups to see Yuumi Pantheon be a part of it. And so the problem that we ran into with scouts was whenever we would bring a lineup that didn't involve banning Yuumi Pantheon, we found ourselves in these spots to where your opponents could likely just 2-0 your scouts deck. And so it kind of fell out of favor for us. I kind of decided on, at least in terms of seasonals, I wanted to play a lineup that accepted Yuumi Pantheon, right? When we played seasonals, I wanted to play against Yuumi Pantheon. I wanted to play against Talia Ziggs. And that's not where you're at with the Scouts lineup. But a lot of people did bring scouts with the opposing idea, right? The opposing idea that we're just got to ban Yuumi Pantheon. And so we're seeing a lot of scouts plus fairies lineups, scouts plus Pantheon just for the mirror match kind of thing. And she had a lot of success in seasonals. And so as we've kind of like seen here recently in the meta, I think this is back to being a fairly decent time to play scouts. That period where the new cards came out, and everyone was trying to work with Udyr, and everyone was trying to work with Garen. That's faded, right? We aren't seeing too much Udyr these days. We aren't seeing too much Garen these days. And that brings us back to a place to where we can start running the scouts again. And so those of you that are familiar with us, this is a fairly stock list. There are some things that you can change. It was kind of popular in seasonals to play 0 Cythrias and 3 Genvivis. We aren't doing that here. We're just playing the 2 Cythrias, the 1 Genvivi, just the singular copy of Penitent Squire today, and then we have pushed in a Blinding Assault. And so the thing you will note that Bust usually isn't doing here is the lack of Stony Suppressor, and so I think we've kind of fallen out of favor to where the Stony Suppressor is good. I still love it. You're one of my favorite cards running out and about, but when we were at kind of like peak Stony Suppressor, we were seeing lots of Victor-based decks, lots of Riven-based decks, and lots of damage-based removal spells, mainly the likes of the Tri-Beam deck, and then also a lot of Darkness running around. And so those decks aren't as big as they used to be when we're not like just kind of canceling Victor or forcing like 3 and 4 and 5 extra mana out of the Tri-Beam decks, then I don't think it's quite as useful. And so just too many decks don't care about it at this stage of the meta, and so we've taken them back out. But that's not to say that Scouts isn't a good deck in this meta. I think it's still pretty strong and pretty powerful, and so that's what we'll be doing battle with today. And so that will be that. It is time for the battle, not the scary fairies, my dude. Where did you go? Where's the Suppressor? That's what we're playing today. The Stony Suppressor, not a part of our video. It's sad. It makes me a little sad, but we'll get over it and do okay. All right. What are we up against first? The old Trundlemere. Sure. This was one of those matchups to where the Stony Suppressor wasn't terrible, but it wasn't as good as we wanted it to be. And so, oh, that was not what I intended to do. I meant to hang on to the 1-drop and mulligan away the Island Navigator, but whoops. You know, sometimes you make a little whoopsies. Maybe we'll make the best of it here and face up against a big AoE draw, and we can just survive it with the Misfortune and the Island Navigator, but that was not my intent. I meant to mulligan away the Navigator and keep the bird.
I'm one of the good guys, but not that good.
Alright, so an Avalanche would be a little unfortunate, but we still get to chunk in a bunch of damage. We'll let that go. There's a small argument to play a Ranger's Resolve to protect your Misfortune from Vile Feasts, but we can just play it on the follow-up if that's his next move. Okay. All the big uns coming about. It's almost tempting to actually just play the Sharp Sight here to protect our Misfortune. She only has like one tick on her, one attack at this point, but like this is a matchup to where we're just not going to get a ton of value out of this Sharp Sight. And this is also a match to where if we just go into next turn with a -2 health Island Navigator, that doesn't feel very good as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and heal Misfortune up to 3, run into next turn, and then we'll try and get Quinn going. Ready to bring the booms. Not today, my dude, not today. Bust says no. All right, the big damage is coming in. It's always nice to counterspell their 5-mana play for 1. I guess technically you got to gain a little bit of health there. It wouldn't be a full and proper counterspell, but it's strong. It's strong. All right, we're good to add a Island Navigator now. I could see an argument for just like going ahead and playing Make It Rain, but we can just add Misfortune next turn. So do we want to get any more of this stuff in? I think we do. I'm not amped about Genvivi here. She's just a little bit too slow. I'm looking more towards adding Island Navigator and then deciding if we want to add Misfortune or if we want to Brightsteel Protector our Quinn. So if he plays like Trundle, I would look to just... Oh, fuck me. Okay. Well, that one's a little bit more problematic. We were so good against everything, and just the Ruination is too bad.
Fortune favors the bold.
Alright, well, we don't have quite enough mana to make the big plays now. I'd love to have gotten a 10 hit in with Jin Vivi, but not the way it's going. Still could be okay. If we get to make an open attack next turn, reasonable chance we get a big lethal. Okay, not worried about the damage whatsoever.
Hello, new best friend.
Add the Mirai Warden. I think the Bright Steel's safe enough.
You're covered.
And then the thing that's like really burning at me now is I can't remember if these decks play two copies of the Ruination. Like if he plays Feel the Rush, we're okay. We can deal with the Feel the Rush. It's just got to be a question of do we come in and open attack into Feel the Rush. I think we just have to attack. Right? Is this how we feel okay? If he has a Withering Wail, we get in for 7 and he doesn't die. Then if he has a something like a 3 Sisters, then we're still okay. This isn't including our Misfortune damage, though. We should have put the gem out here. I was wanting to kill off this Kindly Tavern Keeper. Then we would have beat a Withering Wail. That was a little sloppy. We pull this back and go with Jin Vivi. Ugh. Alright. It was good enough. The scouts never fail me. My plays fail me sometimes. Sometimes those plays aren't perfect, but the scouts are good enough. There it is. This guy knows what life's about. All right. Bringing in his own scouts. I dig it. I dig it, my dude. And so let's see here. We'll hang on to the Sculptor and the Misfortune. We're on the evens, and so I'm pretty tempted to just hang on to everything here. It's like I kind of would like some interactivity. That's the thing that worries me here, is if like we keep this hand and then opponent's like, hey, what up? Here's my Petricite Broadwing. And that just really aces, everything that we're doing. And so let's at least risk it for the biscuit here. I like this hand a lot if he doesn't have the Broadwing on turn 2. The Mirai Warden was a good addition. We don't have to go Sculptor now. Okay. What's your unit, my dude? Okay, I'm going to offer it up. It's like, if he takes like the initiative next turn and leads with a unit we don't care about, then we can just kind of slow play the Misfortune. I don't think this is a super dangerous play. I was going to say, I think this happens frequently where we just get the damage in for free. Again, now the Broadwing is the awkward card we don't really want to see. There it is. A little unfortunate, but we'll get over it. So now I'm going to slightly pivot in how we bring forth our units. If he gets the kill onto the Bright Steel, that's his like obvious line here. But next turn we can do Fleet Feather plus Misfortune. And our Durandi is good and protected. Oh, just no attacks? Interesting. Interesting. All right, no complaints from me. Bring in the Misfortune now. Should be pretty obvious that's what's about to come down. Well, I guess maybe not, but probably. Maybe not, but probably. It should be obvious that when we just spend the 1 mana here, that's what's about to come in. But you do have to play a unit after the bird if you want to get the full value out of it.
Fortune favors the bold.
Okay, couple of good hooks here. Even if he has the sharp sight for the Broadwing, this hook with the bird is still pretty important. It's like if he just has no cards, then this is great. We get to take the bird down to 1 and our bird doesn't die. And then if he has a sharp sight, it's still okay. It drops his bird down to 3 health and then it can't attack down our misfortune. Beautiful. Oh, did I mess that up? Oh, no, that makes sense. We didn't have quick attack. Been sweet if we did.
Hey there, Red. Well, that's one fantasy come true.
Everybody's got the Poros. Our Poro, I guess our Poro is better, right? We hit the lonely Poro for the additional unit, but he has the impact. Impact's pretty strong. I don't know. I feel like we got the win on that. We're definitely gonna get the plunders off the plunder Poro, right? He's just gonna take over the game. These are the kind of lines I'm here for. Okay, we'll block with the navigator. I don't want to get the bright steel involved in this combat because then it dies to a misfortune shot. So if we can save it for a better block on attack number 2, I'll feel a little bit better about that.
With a little help, I made you fly.
Okay, we have this Penitent Squire we could play, but it's not going to interact well with this combat, so I'm going to hold it back. I think we'll probably lose Misfortune here, right? If he has a Sharp Sight, then the Sharp Sight's going to be good onto the Broadwing, but I don't think we can just give up on her at this point. We have to make him have it. Alright, boys, we surviving? Are we doing it? So good if she survives. Yep. Didn't expect it to play out in our favor, but
Love ya.
sad noises. Okay, we won't play any cards. I want to get this second Island Navigator down. Vanguard Sergeant, you are interesting. It would be nice to get him going on this full board of scouts, but this is going to be a little bit impossible, if you will. We don't have the mana to do all that stuff. I mean, we still have good attacks with the Island Navigators. We'll have to see what he plays. If he drops something like Cythria, then this turn is pretty awkward. It's like even if he drops pretty much anything, this starts to be fairly bad. All right, we're just gonna have to try and wait and hope we can get a Vanguard Sergeant going. So he has the options to flip his Misfortune here, which is gonna be deadly. This is going to be a disaster, but. We should have just blocked. I was like, I had in my head I need to come down and just overwrite something so that we get the thing, but I should have just blocked if we are going to overwrite. Whoops. No, we may not have to for Demacia here, though. That might be our saving grace on this one. He's going to definitely get 2 good hooks with the Broadwings, but we have a couple of units that can survive the big Misfortune Blast. Pulling them right out of combat. Makes sense. Got to attack with Misfortune. What are you doing? It's like you have to have a trick or something here, right? I mean, well, I guess you don't have to, but it's so awkward to just not immediately slam everything in. Wow, okay. I mean, we just have to be like, okay, I hope he doesn't have Golden Aegis. Like, if he has an Aegis, like, we're already pretty fucked in terms of him getting the flipped Misfortune. He's most certainly setting this up like he has the Golden Aegis, right? That's why he's hooking these smaller units over here, just letting us win some of these combats. right? I imagine he's just going to refill his board and then play Golden Aegeus, but we just have to be like, okay, well, number one, we just can't die. And then number two, if he has it, we've lost anyway, so let's just not play around it. Hello, new best friend. Okay. That's slightly awkward, but sure. Curious why he plays Jin Vivi now. I mean, it's just gonna... He's like, here's my 4 mana, I'm gonna play a Golden Aegeus. Like, it's not my first rodeo, I know what's about to happen, but... GG. But that's the power of the Broadwings in the mirror, right? He completely took over that game with the Broadwings. He had the interactive elements while we didn't. And that was certainly enough to push it over the edge for them. I wonder how that would have panned out if we kept the bird instead of the... Was that the bird game where we meant to keep the bird and didn't do it? Can't remember. Everything runs together. Okay. So I'm okay-ish with hanging on to Ranger's Resolve. They don't have, like, tons of burn. I'm trying to remember what even comes out of this style of deck. I think it's a base Ezreal deck with the Aphelios in it. Let's hang on to it. This could be like fairly important if we play the Durandi Sculptor on 2 and then get to counterspell the Mystic Shot with the Ranger's Resolve. I think I like the idea of that. I think we do want to build up the Misfortune with the Sculptor, right? If we want to get board presence, then we need to go with the Mirai Warden, but I don't think we're in the biggest of hurry here. I think we can play the Sculptor, add Misfortune next turn, and then look to have a big attack on turn 4. Also could have the potentially relevant Make It Rain happening here. I don't think that's going to be the case, but potential. That's an expensive way to deal with the Sculptor. Okay. Sure. All right. Well, let's lead with the bird. I'm not counting on this doing a lot, but this is the most threatening unit that we have right now, and we need it to have Challenger. That's kind of interesting with the burgeoning Sentinel and being able to hit the Duskbringer with the Make It Rain, potentially grow the Sentinel. Oh no! Where are you at, Aphelios? Not bad. Not a bad counterspell from the Ranger's Resolve. I don't expect this Misfortune to hang around forever, but it's good to get that in while you can. We're just booming everywhere this game. What up, Ezreal? Get worked, son. Oh my gosh, we're gonna get... Do we go for this Make It Rain? I think we do. Like, we have a couple of options here, right? Maybe we just play Jin Vivi. Like, this turn doesn't feel great, though. It's like, if we play Jin Vivi and then he has a removal spell for Misfortune, that feels pretty bad. But if we play Make It Rain and then he has a removal spell for Misfortune, it's still pretty good, right? We get both of his units off the board, we get to grow the Sentinel. We miss out on all our Misfortune plays, but I think this is strong. So then he has to make the decision now. Do I want to either, well, yeah, I guess that I was going to say the line I was about to make didn't make sense. I was going to say he has to make the decision now. Do I want to play units or play spells? But he did get to respond to our card. It's limited to 3 mana though. It's pretty little. Okay.
Nothing's more exciting than an unsolved mystery. What's the motive?
Got him to 6. He was playing Paddlestar. What do I know about that thing? What do I know? Yeah, people need to give old FTP Bust a lesson. Say Paddlestar's playable, my dude. Wow, wow. Is this how does this work? If we'll have 8. If we have 8 plus 3 next turn, we still can't. We still can't 4 Demacia plus Genvivi or. Oh, hang on, that was backwards. I'm losing it today. Yeah, people come here and watch me do math, and it's just fucking embarrassing. We could have played Genvivi, banked 3, and then next turn played the Island Navigator plus the 4 Demacia. I just had in my head that we were trying to get up to 12 mana instead of 10. Can't do 12 mana this turn. That portion of my mathematics was correct, but can't do 12. Could have done 10. Okay. Let's see if we can punt. I've just been trying my hardest to lose every game today. The scouts say, nah, man, nah. I'm not about that. The scouts are not about losing. GG. I guess that's what you could call a good ladder climber, right? If you can just come out here and play garbage tier and masters and still win all your games. I love it. I love it. These people just watching the videos saying, this guy's terrible. How the fuck does he get into masters? Why am I stuck in platinum 3? I love it. All right, let's hang on to the tracker and misfortune. Look for a 2-drop. I'd like to have a nice curve against Viego and friends. Can't wait to put together that Vigio and Lorelei deck. Probably put an Emperor's Diaz in it. Whew, shit's gonna be choice. Can't wait to do it. Can't wait to do it. I mean, before long, they just have to make like an entire. They have to be able to get like the entire 40 cards account, like 40 card deck of cards I just can't pronounce. Like we're gonna have the Lorelei's, we're gonna have the Vigios, the Emperor's Diaz's. They made all those Nakabaros cards. Slam some of those right in here. All right. Ooh, a sculptor. It's kind of interesting. These decks do play Vile Feast, but they don't play much other early game stuff. I think I'm good to just drop the Broadwing and keep our aggression up. I don't really want to pump the brakes to this Durandi Sculptor. Yep. Now we still get good attacks. But if we pick up a combat trick, we might change our story. But as it stands, especially now that we just picked up the Bright Steel, we'll just play Misfortune and then continue on with the good curve. This is kind of an interesting space, and who do we put the barrier on? I'm like okay to let the Broadwing just die, and I would like to be aggressive with Misfortune this turn. The other question is, do we like lead with the Sculptor before the Bright Steel? I think that's part's okay. This gives us a little bit more time to make decisions as well, but I'm leaning towards putting the Bright Steel onto Misfortune and then attacking with everyone. I'm good with this. So now he has to get either blasted with damage, and then potentially next turn not be able to deal with her, or save the Camaveran Soldier from misfortune next turn. With him blocking now, I assume that he's going to be playing Viego next turn, but we have some potential to get around it with the Golden Aegis. So if he plays Viego, we can drop the Aegis to protect misfortune. I'm not amped about it, but it does give her the means to get into the next round. Just wish we had a little bit more board before we dropped her. Ooh, the Camaveran Soldier is a different story, though. Right, we can play Quinn, and then we can Ranger's Resolve into the hook onto Misfortune, save her for next turn. Makes me feel a little bit better about blocking this Encroaching Mist as well. Like, the chip damage, this is... Did I math that completely wrong? Oh my god, I thought we were going to have a spell mana at the end of the day. I had in my head that we were playing, I was considering playing the Golden Aegis, and I thought that just cost 4. So I was like, oh, well, we'd still just spend 4 mana and get the Ranger's Resolve going. I don't know, guys. I don't know. Maybe I'm losing it. I'm getting old. This math shit gets harder and harder to do with every game we play. Dang. You're gonna have to call a hotline or something for me. Say sorry, fam. Bust's losing it. He's doing math much worse than usual. Whew, it's tough. I need to get a sandwich or something. Make sure my blood sugar is high enough. Nobody watches at this point anyway, so it's all good. They all know the difference. Just digging and digging for that champion.
With the power of time, the possibilities are endless.
Observe the price of ambition. Protect and strike.
All right. I thought we might get a decent attack in that turn, but it's not the case. I was hoping that we'd be able to just attack with everything and then sharp sight through the bad block. But with him adding all this stuff to the board, that's not the case. I do still want to make an attack, though, because we have this Golden Aegis for Quinn, and we can get potentially get a Quinn flip next turn. He needs to open onto Quinn if he wants to take her down. It's not perfect, but might get the job done. He can kind of fuck with this. He can like hook Quinn into combat here and break her barrier. Ugh. Ugh, that's gross. That's gross. Okay. Damn. That quicksand boomed us hard. Not as hard as just like counting wrong and misplaying at every corner of the game, but that was pretty bad. That was pretty bad. Those plat threes are definitely looking at this game and being like, this guy's fucking terrible. All right, we're going to get 2 more games in, though. I usually run these videos up to 8 games, but when we do the chit chats at the beginning about the new cards, that usually cuts into like 15-20 minutes of the time, and I don't like for these to run too much longer than an hour. So we'll cut this off at 6. I think it's still a pretty good refresher on how good scouts are. Right, all right. Let's see if we can't get one of those turn 4 Mount Targons and Targon's Peaks, if you will. Let it hit our 1-drop and hit his Aurelian Soul. One of the most frustrating experiences. It's not that frustrating. Like it's so different between like the things that feel bad and feel good. And it's just like with the Targon's Peak and your opponent hitting an Aurelian Soul, you're just kind of like, all right, guy. It's like on to the next one, I guess. Just it's like when things go completely that wrong, it just doesn't even feel that bad. It's kind of interesting. Alright, need a play. Need a dude. Didn't find it. The overbank isn't that bad, but would have loved to have put forth a little bit more aggression against this deck. Gotta start churning out the scouts, though. There's the Targon's Peak. Alright. Alright, let's see how this goes. Got our boy Rearguard. Oh, Quinn. Dang, and we just draw Misfortune? Okay.
Nothing gets between me and my
Alright, let's see. Let's see how this goes. It's like he's just got to play like the 8-drop AoE. What all does this kill? Okay, I kind of want to protect one of these scouts. I think, like, I mean, it's actually pretty tempting to come in and protect both of them. He's down to 3 mana now. It's going to be pretty tough for him to follow up with anything. And then we can also add in Misfortune here just to... Do we want to add in Misfortune or do we want to add in the Golden Aegis? The Golden Aegis is going to churn in so much more damage, right? So we'll hit. This is a 12. We'll re-hit for another 12. And then we can Golden Aegis for another 12. All the 12s coming at you. That was pretty sweet. That was a pretty sweet Targon's Peak just hitting our... hitting our most expensive card. Clearly didn't hit something useful for him. Nice. Alright, that was sweet. Alrighty, let's get our last battle going on here. What do we got? Trundlemere Part 2. All the ramp decks coming at us today. 3 in total. Alright, so I want to keep the Broadwing. I don't want the combat tricks. I think we should probably get rid of the Bright Steel. There's just not a lot of boards to where this protects our stuff. Like, the thing that matters the most in this matchup is the AoEs, right? And the Mirai Warden and the Bright Steel Protector just don't survive those. And so I think we can get rid of that. Try to find a Misfortune. Try to find another unit that has 3 health. But that's about all we could ask for. All the 3 healthers coming at us. Sure.
fortune favors the bold.
Okay. All right. Let's see what we can chunk in here. Oh, the Valor is interesting, and it gives us a scout unit. I'm going to lead with the Broadwing just to kind of see what they do. As I say, there's like a very real chance that they AoE before we play the bird. And now that the coast is kind of clear, we should be able to get extra chunks in. I think we'll more frequently get more damage out of this Blinding Assault than we would the Mirai Warden. Right, this should be... Well, I guess... That should probably be right. This is going to be 6 damage out of the Valor almost every time, to where the Mirai Warden would need to hit a 3-drop to hit 6 damage. I can do some math, right? I'm not perfect at it, but I can do a math on occasion. Blighted Ravine. Okay. Still going to add this Vanguard Sergeant. He'll survive into the next turn. We're not going to really have enough board to go for the 4 Demacia, but we should be able to add something else here. He's at 8 mana, which is kind of scary if he has the 8 damage, 3 AoE thing. Because I want to take down the faces of the old ones, so it's like I'm kind of wanting to play Quinn, but a lot of things can go wrong with Quinn. So let's just add Genvivi. She accomplishes kind of the same goal in taking the faces of the old ones off of the board and still getting attacks in. And then she also survives the big AoE. Okay, drop him to 10. Gotta have something, right? Vile Feast, sure. So not coming up on the Field Rush turn just yet, right? We took away his mana gem, so we can't play it until next turn. So how do we want to go about this? I think we just want to go with the Quinn. We want to go with the Mirai Warden. This gets the most stats on the board. And then hopefully we don't get AoE'd out of it. Vengeance, that's good. So we would be a little susceptible to a Withering Wail, which he conveniently has all the mana for. But Blighted Ravine, yeah. We did hit a... Is this Adaptron gonna be the big game decider? Sitting around with that point of health, surviving the AoEs? I believe in you, my dude. I believe in you. Interesting. I guess the Withering Wail still looks pretty good here with the 2 smaller units, but I don't like dropping Cythria in these spots because it's just too easy to react to. And so I like to play Cythria on their turn and then be in the spot to open. Fucking Ruination. I think these decks usually just play like 1 copy of it. They don't usually play 2 and 3 copies. We've been running into that thing all day. Ugh. Alright, we need a good one. Need a good one. It's just, that Vile Feast stops so much damage. Okay, we'll call it a day there. GG, my dude. Okay, so not a bad set of games. Not a bad set of games. We played against most of the top of the meta, right? It's so weird, like looking at the numbers these days, to where the Sun Disc still sits as like one of the most common decks. I can't remember the last time we played Sun Disc, but it might just be a matter of me not filtering properly and needing to look at the Masters over the past few days. But I expect to mainly at this point. Just never see the Sun Disc. I haven't been seeing too much in the world of Pirates either, and so if you're not running into too much of that, then the Quinn Misfortune should still be a pretty good deck. But I think the things here still stand. Like where that tangent was going is Trundlemere and then Mono Vigio are both one of the more common decks at this point, and so. You have reasonable-ish matchups against both of those. Again, the matchup against Yuumi Pantheon is terrible. The mid-range decks are all terrible, but this does beat up on the likes of Pirates, a lot of the unit-based board control decks, and so lots of good matchups in the matchup table with Scouts. And so I still recommend it. It's still good stuff. We let the Stony Suppressors go their own way, but maybe they'll come back another day. And so I was glad we got to play the Scouts, got to talk about the new cards, got to give a little props to the Sony Suppressors, and hopefully they'll return one day. But nonetheless, that is going to do it for us today. Hope everyone enjoyed the video. You maybe learned how to scout them out a little bit better. Maybe learned a thing or two along the way and had a good time watching. This is Bust, and we thank you for being here.